Welcome to the Untrapped Podcast, where we're motivated and inspired about success, small business, and personal development. And now, Keith Kalfas.
What's up, guys? This is Keith Kalfas with the Untrapped Podcast. I have some awesome guests for you today. We have Brianna White and Daniel Miraval. They're co-owners of Emerald Tree Care. They're the tree couple in action. They're beloveds, life and business partners residing in Chicago, and they're a very engaging couple, and they're sought-after speakers and trainers. So if you're in the green industry and you want to get a checkup from the neck up and learn some stuff that will just blow your mind, and it's very inspiring, here they are on the podcast all the way from Chicago. What's up, Brianna?
Yes.
How are you? Daniel Miraval.
What up, Del?
Thanks for being on my show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, so
I feel like I've been here before.
you have been here before.
I have been here before.
I've done a bunch of videos with you before, Daniel Miraval. You're one of 800 master board certified arborists in the world.
It's a little over 1,000 at this point, I think. But when I became a board certified master arborist, there were still not 1,000 yet. So, yeah, it's the highest point of credentialing through the International Society of Arboriculture. Yeah, so
Very powerful. It's like white collar tree professionals. I've been on job sites with you, and I also was on a job site where both of you were there, and just seeing the professionalism and the safety, and everybody and your team are wearing like the hard hats and the safety gear and the gloves and everything, like
PPE.
PPE.
Yeah.
And now,
Well, in case your guests don't know, that's personal protective equipment.
yeah.
Right? Eyes, ears, head, feet.
And now this has gone to a whole new like level where you're inspiring other people. And you guys recently spoke at an event. You were telling me, can you tell me about that?
Yeah.
Sure, we've spoken at a couple events, but I think you were talking about the ISA Texas
I
event.
may have been speaking about that, yes.
Okay, let's talk about the ISA Texas one.
What happened?
Daniel and I were invited to speak at the ISA Texas chapter. They do their annual conference just like most state chapters do or regional chapters do. And we got to speak about roots and root health and bald and burlap trees and where they come from and the problems or not problems associated with those things.
What's funny is our presentation's called,
Happy Roots, Happy Shoots.
so from the, what did you say, get a checkup from the neck up?
Yep.
Right? So from the roots to the shoots.
Mm-hmm.
In tree care, we usually think about the crown of the tree, and then the root system's like a secondary thought, but Brianna's very into the root system.
Especially coming up in arboriculture when I did, they teach us to do this 360-degree walk around, and you're only looking at the canopy of the tree, right? So you check for, especially if you're pruning, right? You want to check for hazards. You want to make sure there's no electrical lines running through the tree. Or heaven forbid, we've run into a couple hornets' nests, having not spotted those on the front end. I got stung by my first hornet last year.
Ouch.
Yeah. And, but, you know, they teach us to do this walk around for safety, but I think that we need to take that 360-degree view also this way. You need to also be reviewing everything underground. And while you can't see it, there's things that you can do to really check root health and soil health and just the integrity of the tree from the ground up. So that's kind of what ISA Texas was about.
Whoa. See, as a landscaper, if you cut lawns or maybe you trim some trees and bushes or you do installation, this is a totally different level, and it's super valuable for the customers and people that are looking for this, because they might have, like, you talk about people are highly invested in their trees. They have sentimental attachments, and they don't want like all their ash trees to die or something's wrong. Can you talk about more about what you guys do in your business for a second?
Sure. So I kind of look at it as two divisions. My specialty is more in the plant healthcare side, so I am your nerd when it comes to insects, diseases, abiotic problems. So like in the Midwest, we deal with chlorosis a lot, which is just a nutrient deficiency. So I don't blame that on an insect or a disease. So it falls under the abiotic realm.
I'm sorry, abiotic, what is that?
So like not caused by an insect or a disease, kind of like an environmental problem, or it can also be man-made, like when you have grade changes on a property and all of a sudden a tree doesn't receive the same water that it used to receive. That can be an abiotic problem.
Oh.
You think about plants that are not doing well along the foundation of a house.
Perfect, yes.
Okay? they get maybe chlorotic, a condition called chlorosis. A lot of that has to do with the upset of the pH balance in the soil, because you think about foundations of homes are, they're going to be built out of block, poured concrete walls, and all that leaches, there's a lot of salt in that, and all that leaches back into the soil. And you wonder why 2 or 3 years after the installation of new foundation plants, they're failing. And of course, a lot of times we want to run to fertilizer as a quick fix, and actually that's not what they need. They don't need more fertilizer. They need to change the soil profile. So you have to create an environment that's conducive to increasing microbial activity to help the trees and plants around the foundation negate the negative impacts of that high pH level.
What?
Sorry, that's a lot.
We're like 3 minutes in and we're already there.
That's awesome. And it's like, so word gets around when you serve customers at this high level that you got to contact Emerald Tree Care. This couple, they know exactly what's going on and they can diagnose it and help you. So
yeah, so a lot of times we'll go on these. We do the majority of the sales. We still do in-house. We're still the master diagnosticians within the company, but often we'll both go onto a site that has some issues, because we look at it from two different lenses. So my perspective is more soil-related, root-related health, and then Brianna, again, is more on the insect disease control management side, and we figure out how we can marry these two modalities together to create a better environment for a tree or a plant, let's say. And of course, we start out by looking at, the structural integrity of a tree, let's say. Is it a good candidate for preservation? Is it a high-value tree? Not all trees are high value. Some of them are invasive, but they still can have benefits even if they're invasive species of trees. So we look at it through all these different lenses. So we're kind of at a point in our careers right now where we really want to help other people be able to, people within the green industry, how to kind of learn how to do these things. Because you kind of have two sides of the industry where one just wants to fix the problems, and the typical way to do that is usually to fertilize. And it's like, why are we fertilizing? What are the impacts of fertilization on trees and shrubs that perhaps don't need it because their site conditions have challenges that need to be addressed? Or you have, just cut the tree down. You have that side of the industry as well. Not that doesn't need to happen sometimes. So we're trying to look at it from the lens of how do we preserve, protect existing canopy. If you're going to install new canopy in green spaces, how do you do that in a way that reduces their challenges to establishment? Wow. And we're wanting to do that more for people in the green industry who want to level up, just like you do with social media content. A lot of people reach out to you because they want to know, how can I promote my business, or how can I promote my skill set and share it with other people? You teach them how to do that. So we're trying to, we're not trying, but we are actively helping other people do that as well within their tree care company, especially those who want to get in the plant healthcare game. So we are a more traditional, not a traditional tree care company. We are a plant healthcare company first and foremost that happens to do regular, what you would think of as traditional tree care, kind of as a side hustle a little bit, I guess you'd say. Where most companies are traditional tree care companies that are looking to supplement their income so they get into the plant healthcare game. Because the plant healthcare game is very lucrative.
Can you both tell a story of like a client, a happy client customer story where you went in and you remediated an issue?
Door County.
Oh, you want to go there? Okay.
Let's do it.
So as a company, we do business in 5 states, but we have a couple of magic outliers. And so even though while we treat in Wisconsin, we don't really go north of Cedarburg, Wisconsin. We happen to have one client in Door County with an ash tree. It's a 37-inch ash tree, and it's right on the lake. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful location. And this homeowner has shared that he wants to die looking at this tree.
In his hammock. Across the yard, he's got a hammock between 2 maple trees. He's like, Daniel, when I die, I want to be laying in my hammock looking at that tree.
Which is no pressure, right? So now you have a client that's identified this absolutely spectacular tree, makes a huge impact on their life. They want to die with this tree. And so between battling the emerald ash borer and then battling some structural issues that the tree had, it's been a 5 or 6 year journey now to literally rebuild this tree. So I came in with very specific treatments in order to make sure that we were protecting it from the emerald ash borer, because the rest of Door County is decimated. Like there are not, I have not yet seen another living ash tree in Door County. But
because of the emerald ash borer?
Because of the emerald ash
Isn't
borer.
that a beetle that spreads a fungal infection, goes from tree to tree or something? Or I don't know.
We're going to go down the rabbit hole about EAB now.
Sure.
So this is the emerald ash borer queen. She's got a couple different names, the ginkgo goddess, the emerald ash borer queen, and there's a good reason why she is that.
Well, teach us.
Sure.
Awesome.
So emerald ash borer is probably my specialty when it comes to the insect realm.
And then we'll circle back to your question about the client.
Sure.
This is good.
Cool.
So in general, the emerald ash borer was introduced into the United States right here in Michigan. So Oakland County, I call our emerald ash borer ground zero, and that just so happens to be where I grew up. So my father, who founded Emerald Tree Care, was working on the front lines when this strange thing that was killing ash trees came into our area. So long story short, he worked alongside a couple of professionals at Michigan State University and was kind of there when they finally identified the fact that we were dealing with an insect. So the emerald ash borer is a beetle. It's in the Agrillus beetle family. So like its cousin is the bronze birch borer, which we hear a lot more about like locally. And it feeds. It basically, it's going to lay eggs. Those eggs are going to hatch. They're going to feed on the different layers of your phloem, your cambium, things like that. And it causes a disruption in the transport of nutrients. So
And water.
So water, nutrients, and if someone's trying to treat systemically with a chemical, any interruption is hard to navigate. So I don't know what Michigan has lost at a minimum 40 million trees.
40 million?
40 million. And that's at a minimum, because that number that I'm remembering might be 10 years old at this point. The emerald ash borer is officially in, I think, 23 states. Portland, Oregon is the last place to have confirmed it, and that was 100% transported by human, because if you look at the surrounding states, there's been no confirmation of emerald ash borer. So it's not like it slowly moved across the country. We as man moved it there. It was confirmed, I believe, in a nursery and also at like a summer camp park. So
we move it through like goods and services.
Yep.
So when it came here, what was identified as how it got here was it came from China on a shipping container on pallets, so wooden pallets. So the pallets, the insect got into the pallets. It's the same with spotted lanternfly. We have a spotted lanternfly that's coming. It's the same thing. It's getting on shipping containers and things that come from overseas, and that's how we get a lot of these invasive pests. So that's how the emerald ash borer ended up here, in China.
Wow.
And our ash trees here are not set up to be resilient or have any resistance to that bug, where the ones in China.
Yep. So the easy concept is if you have a native tree and a native insect, there's usually not too much of a problem. But if you have a native tree, so our Fraxinus americana, the American ash, is a native tree to us, but now we have brought in this foreign insect. Anything native and foreign, you have a problem because there's no natural resistance. So you go back to Dutch elm disease. This was not a disease that was native to elms. It was not native to America. And then you introduce a foreign disease to a native tree, and you have decimation.
Wow. What I'm picking up from this is like, because it's just like biology, so you must have a very healthy respect and love for trees to even. Can you talk about that?
Well, we can bring back up our client in Door County.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I have already saved it from the emerald ash borer, and then you fixed it structurally. Your turn.
So he was a little bit late in treatment. And by a little bit late, what I mean by that is he should have been treating probably 7 to 8 years before he recognized that there was a problem. And the biggest challenge was he could not find someone. So this is a summer home on Lake Michigan, okay? He doesn't live there full time. But he couldn't find anybody that could treat that tree up in that area, that neck of the woods. So the first thing we did was, identify was it still a candidate for preservation, and how would we restore the tree, because it had probably a solid 30% canopy dieback. And that's kind of the golden rule. If you have 30% more canopy dieback, then the tree's kind of too far gone. So he was right on that cusp. So I kind of presented him with the idea that
30%, that sounds like quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's significant, but it's, you study the tree and you see where you've lost that 30%. Because
there has to be enough viable canopy that the tree can uptake the necessary nutrients, minerals, water, and of course any insecticide that she's going to prescribe to put into the tree.
Listen, if you need help training employees, we have figured out a simple 4-step system that can get a brand new employee up and running in sometimes as little as an hour. Like, I couldn't leave the job site before because I wasn't confident that the employees wouldn't mess something up. Now, with this simple 4-step system, it's become really, really easy. And we've created a free PDF download documenting the 4 steps and outlining exactly what to do. This is actually really simple, and I hope you go and download it. It's yours. It's totally free. Go to keithkalfas.com/4steps, the number 4 and steps, and download this and put this into your business. All right, back to the show.
So I told him, he's like, oh, yeah, I want to get all that dead wood out of there, and I kind of want to make it pretty again. And I said, well, it's not so much about just getting the dead wood out. You need to stimulate that tree through proper pruning practices to try to restore the canopy of the crown of the tree. So basically rebuilding the tree. Often when we see trees that are damaged in storms or from insect attack, a lot of times what will happen is we'll just cut the tree down because it doesn't look like a tree anymore. But there are ways, proper pruning techniques, crown reduction techniques, where you can stimulate response growth, and then you manage that growth over time. So I kind of told him, I said, if you really want to save this tree, where it's, you're going to have to sign on for a couple of years of cyclical pruning. You can't miss any treatment schedule or anything like that. So it wasn't just about removing the dead wood. It was about structurally pruning the tree. I explained to him the tree will never look the way it used to look, but it's still going to be a very healthy tree. So we rebuilt the canopy. So his next pruning cycle is actually going to come up either this late summer or this fall, but it's a beautiful tree again. So, it's not about creating the perfect tree because, my specialty is...
Wait, you said, and it's a beautiful tree again.
It's a beautiful tree again.
What does it look like?
Oh, well, I have pictures on my phone. But
and the client's happy?
The client's very happy, yeah.
Wow. Good job. That's amazing.
Right.
Okay.
So it's not about pruning, like they say, is as much of a science as it is an art, and it really is. It's not about creating the perfect tree. When you think about trimming shrubs, right? So on the landscape end of it, we trim shrubs and we try to make them symmetrical because that's often what the client
that
wants.
Beautiful uniformity. Yeah.
Right, exactly. What you're really trying to do with a tree is you're trying to create a structure that's more resistant to storm damage. Because one thing that we know due to climate vulnerability is we have increases in storms, their ferocity, their frequency. So you get a lot of damage in trees because you go 25, 30 years where there's no pruning taken into account, especially on a structural level, and then storms and wind events come through and the tree breaks apart. So it's not about creating a perfect tree. It's about helping it be more resistant to storms, much like we do in life, right? We talk about that kind of stuff all the time. Like, what are you pruning out of your own life that helps you be more resistant to the storms that are coming? Because times are good and times are bad, and sooner or later life comes around and something not great happens and it'll smack that ass. So you need to be ready for that. You can't always take it for granted that everything's going to go okay. So it's the same in the case of a tree. We plant a tree and then we kind of forget about it. And then 25, 30 years goes by and all of a sudden there's a big thunderstorm or one of those derecho, straight line wind events or a tornado, God forbid, and a big branch breaks out and people call and the tree fell apart. It's dangerous. Come cut it down. So we don't really operate in that space. We more operate in the space of, well, now that this tree's had this issue, is the tree important to you? Oh, we love that tree. It's very important to us. Well, why don't you let us come out? We do a consultation. We take a look at the tree and see if it's still preservable. And then we talk about how we would preserve it, how we would mitigate other future risks.
I was going to say, then the options come out. And an option always is to cut a tree down if somebody's like, absolutely, I don't want to invest in saving this. But we run into so many situations where it's the only tree over the patio, or it's the tree that the kids planted when they came home from Arbor Day. Whether it's sentimental or it's just the perfect tree in the perfect spot, and all of a sudden we have an issue. The preservation options come out from anywhere from we can do this little, or we can we call it the holy shit package. You can either do all of this and you could have, again, not the perfect tree, but you could have a tree back in your landscape that's going to
viable
hold value.
And still holds a value.
Yep.
And still provides its benefits. That's the biggest part about the tree is the benefits that it provides, from stormwater management to providing shade, sentimental connection value. So we talked about this great story of this client that we have in Door County up in Wisconsin, which is way at the top of Wisconsin. And then there's right in our own backyard back in Illinois, we have a client that had a disabled child. And the child was always like sitting by the back door, wheelchair bound, quadriplegic, and couldn't go outside. And the yard was not conducive for him to go out in his motorized wheelchair. So they built this elaborate decking system with all these different ramps and platforms. It was a multi-tiered deck. Mm-hmm. And I think they spent probably like $60,000 on this deck. And they had a large linden tree, a little leaf linden in the backyard, and it had a codominant stems. So it had two stems almost the same size, and they were touching at the bottom, down near the bottom where they both emanated from. And a storm came through, one of those straight line wind events, and just took half the tree out. They had to lose the whole tree, unfortunately. It was just way too much damage. It made the tree unstable. So they spent like $60,000 on a patio decking system for their quadriplegic child, and now they had no shade. And they were like, this kid will never sit out on this deck because he'll bake in the sun. So the tree was really important to them. And I kind of had told them a few years before that they needed to do some mitigation, put some cables in the trees, a couple of bracing rods, and just prune it for end weight reduction because some of the extending lateral limbs were very long and overextended. And they didn't do any of that, and the storm came through and took it out. That's like a bad story, right? Wow. Unfortunately, we have more of those than good ones to share. It's getting better.
My marketing brain is going nuts right now of much honor and respect to everything you just said. And the sentimental type stories and telling how you can go and diagnose and remediate a situation. I understand that the storm took it out, but just the amount of the element of care that you're and compassion that you're talking about right now is so powerful. And in a marketing aspect, talking about case study stories and testimonials, not any personal information about the clients, but all those type of stories. And it's like if you have a business, then you can tell stories, and it's great for sorry. Anyways, for the people listening right now, they're like, I want to learn more. This is amazing. This is amazing. How can people learn more about what you guys do, about you both, and how to get into this white-collar scientist type tree stuff, because this is amazing?
Well, we're still very much technicians. We're still very much boots on the ground. I don't know if we're white-collar as much.
You call us green-collar.
I do. I've used the term green-collar in the past.
Because we're in a realm of our own.
Right. So, yeah, we're in the green-collar industry.
Green-collar industry.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Now that you're talking about white-collar in tree care, specifically in tree care, I think I can't find the same example specifically in landscaping, but in tree care specifically, you have your arborist, and then you have different levels of credentialing for arborists based on your skill set, your knowledge, your level of study, and then you have PhDs. So we swim in a circle of all of those people. But what's interesting is some of those PhDs, they have doctorates in tree care and tree science and biology. But when they go to apply for certain positions within the industry, if they don't have the same level of credentialing that we have, they can't get a job. So you have a PhD that's not a certified arborist, and that could be the defining line. Like, you need that added credential to show that,
you qualify for
you
the
qualify
job
for the job. And I'm not saying, because I know a lot of people are probably going to listen to this and they'd be like, I know people who've been in tree care for 20 years and they're not certified, and they've been next to certified arborists, and people who've been in the industry for 20 years with these credentials, and my guy who's not credentialed knows more than that guy who is credentialed. That is absolutely true. I've met those people as well. I know people myself. So I'm a board certified master arborist, and I have a very specific discipline. But I know other people who are not even certified arborists, but they have vast amounts of knowledge, predominantly based on experience, that I don't have. So, my credentialing The credentialing is only as good as what it is that you know. I think the credentialing is important because the green industry overall, especially tree care, is really trying to elevate its importance, its level of importance and influence within the green industry as a whole. Right? The HVAC guys get more attention than we do. Right? Your dishwasher breaks, they're not coming out to the house for free. Right? They're going to charge you like a service call, and you just pay it because you need your dishwasher or your refrigerator fixed. And they have that level of, they have licensing and credentialing, and you're just going to pay it. But we get calls all the time where someone will come out and say, my tree doesn't look good. Can you come out here? And I give them our fee schedule for a consultation. And they're like, you're kidding me. You're going to charge me to come out and tell me what's wrong with my tree? Absolutely, because there's a lot of variables of what could be wrong, because we just touched on that. Abiotic, man-made conditions, poor stock, insect disease, and you can't always get rid of them. You can only maybe manage those conditions. And then you have to come up with a whole treatment process of how you're going to manage these conditions.
Yeah, well, you never want to equate human medical with tree medical. We are literally tree doctors when we walk onto a property, because you need to know the history of the site. What's happened here? How did we get here? Did this tree look like this last year? Did you just notice that this tree started looking like this, even though we from a distance know that this has been happening for 3 or 4 years? There's just so many components, and there's kind of I don't want to say it's a lack of respect, but it's a lack of understanding of our industry, because you're describing like people want to pay, or nobody wants to pay for anything, but people will pay for a service-based business, right? Mm-hmm. You need the plumber to come to the house. You need the HVAC guy to come to the house. Your air conditioning just broke, right? Like, these are normal things that cost money, but somehow the tree care industry, the landscape industry, the green industry hasn't like made that a standard. Like we go through so much education, whether it is like local education, or some people can only afford to sit and watch YouTube videos and gain knowledge that way. Or then maybe you kind of get to a point where you get to go to classes, or you get to go to a conference or something like that. But I don't think the homeowners know just how much we dedicate to our field. So there's a lack of understanding that, yes, it does cost us to come to your property, because we're not just coming as like, oh, the tree person. No, you're coming as someone who genuinely understands what's going on and how to fix it. And we personally take a lot of time to educate the client that we're going to stand and talk to. Like, we don't just come look at it and then leave. It's like, okay, we'll give you a proposal or something. Usually it's a 15-minute conversation of, your Colorado blue spruce has this problem because it's not a tree native to the Midwest, and this is the XYZ problems that come with that. And by the time you're done, you've read them the entire article that is secretly the reason that you knew what you knew in the first place.
So for us to teach other people how to do that, we're trying to create more of a space that is more hands-on. Where we can give people tools that they can use, as opposed to just concepts. Those of you who go to conferences, I'm sure you regularly go to a conference where, it's a 45-minute touch on some thing, but you don't really walk out of there knowing anything. So I think it's time to go back to more of hands-on type training, and there's a lot of that in the Chicago area.
Sure, yeah.
Through the Chicago Region Trees Initiative.
Mm-hmm. We are very fortunate where we are that there's a lot of training opportunities. I know that locally, Michigan-wise, I know that the MGIA and the MNLA offers a lot of training opportunities as well. But yeah, CRTI. Do you want to just talk about CRTI real fast? CRTI. So it's the Chicago Region Trees Initiative. There are a couple different pieces that play into the Chicago Region Trees Initiative, but there are 4 work groups, and I'm a co-chair of the Tree Stewardship and Planting Work Group, which puts on community tree network events. Everything is an acronym. CRTI, CTN, everything's an acronym. Mm-hmm. But like you said, there's good training opportunities for that, and I feel like that's one way that we've been able to start to get hands-on opportunities back to the community and the green industry as a whole.
And for those who don't know exactly what the Chicago Region Trees Initiative The CRTI, as it's called, is an organization that's working toward creating a more sustainable and equitable tree canopy within the 7-county region of Chicago. But our goal is to be a model for the whole country. And one of the biggest ways that we do this is to create collaborations and partnerships between municipalities, commercial tree care companies, the nonprofit sector, especially when it comes to the volunteer community, because that's really the foot soldiers on the ground that are helping take care of trees.
So I'm really excited because if you want to learn how to market your business with video, you could do so much with your smartphone. We got to like 400,000 views a month with my smartphone. I hit 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, and even though I was making all types of videos, mostly they were landscaping videos, and there was customers, reaching out saying that they saw my videos and they wanted to hire us. And then it just really worked. So whether you're trying to market your actual business to get more leads, or you want to grow your own personal brand and get into, video marketing, and you can do all this with your smartphone. So I created a free download. It's a 12-page guide all about how to use your smartphone. And there's some unique mechanisms in there that really can open your eyes to all you need is your smartphone. So go to keithkalfas.com/smartphone and you can download the free guide right now. keithkalfas.com/smartphone. See you there.
So yeah, if you want to know how to get more into this, you can follow us. You can reach out to us. We offer training and things like that.
But I think the best way is always start local. Start with whatever training is available to you on a local level, because even just attending one class and learning about something that maybe you don't think specifically pertains to what it is you're doing today, it opens up so many doors for what you can do tomorrow. I know it's a little cliche, but it's very true.
Very true.
So what's the first step? Someone's like, I'm fired up about what you guys are talking about. I'm excited. Where do they go?
You go to your local International Society of Arboriculture chapter, wherever you are. Go to their website. So let's just say you're in Texas. You go to Texas ISA, probably .org. I don't have their site memorized, but just Google Texas ISA. And
not just a Rolodex for everybody's information.
Yeah,
what
pretty
much.
No, I don't know everything about everything, even though I'm a master, supposedly.
Yes.
And start with that, just your local chapter. Like if you were in Michigan, the Michigan Green Industry Association, you can start with that.
ISA Michigan is
ISA
available.
Michigan's another one that's available. These are organizations that often do require some sort of membership investment that you have to pay, but they also have a lot of information sometimes that is where you don't have to pay for it, and just kind of self-study, figure out what it is that you want to do.
Bro, you told me about this book, The Illustrated Guide to Pruning. I think it was
by
like
Dr. Ed Gilman.
$80 or something.
It was like $180.
Wait, I got it on Amazon used for 80 or eBay
Okay.
used, and it showed up. I looked at it. I was like, whoa! I got it downstairs in my bookshelf. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's by Dr. Ed Gilman, who's kind of like the, I guess the grandfather of modern day arboriculture, especially when it comes down to tree pruning for structure, mitigation options, root health. Yeah. So him and Dr. Gary Watson from the Morton Arboretum. So Dr. Ed Gilman is a professor, how do you say, emeritus? Anyway, he's tenured and he's retired, but he's from the University of Florida.
Yes.
And then Dr. Gary Watson, he wrote a book. He wrote several books. He's on several papers, but he's right in our backyard as well. The Practical Science to Planting Trees is a book. Yeah, it's very good for the technician. These books and these people who studied this stuff and wrote about these things in the last 25 years, it was really for the technician. So I went to a conference called the Landscape Below Ground 5 years ago. There's been 5 of them. Every 5 years they have one. And I was very, very fortunate that last year we were able to actually be like a gold level sponsor for the Landscape Below Ground, but it's an international conference, and it's all about what's going on under the ground, roots, and how all those things work together. But the one that I went to before this one, Dr. Gilman was there, and I actually got to plant a tree with him, other people as well. I got to plant a tree with him, and just like that deep dive, that hands-on workshop type experience was like invaluable, because usually you go to a class and there's a PowerPoint presentation and someone who knows about these things is up there just talking, but to actually go to something where you can put your hands on it is important. So I took my book with me, this book that you're talking about. I'm like, Dr. Gilman, will you sign my book? He's like, absolutely. And what he does is he says, he says my name, and he says, teach it, with an exclamation point, and he signs it. And I'm like, teach it. He goes, yeah, all this work that we've been doing for the last 25 years is for people like you that are boots on the ground. We've spent 25 years, and that's kind of the time frame, 20 to 25 years of doing any kind of research and controlled studies before you know that like what you're talking about is something that's going to have like the stamp of approval, like a standard or a best management practice. They don't just say, this looks like a good way to do something, let's do it this way.
Mass apply.
No, you got to go through like 20 years of trying it to make sure that, that's kind of how we should do it. And he said, it's been 25 years. I mean, we know everything that we pretty much know. So go teach it and go do it. So yeah, that's the beauty of the green industry, is especially when it comes to tree care. And I know you have a lot of followers and listeners that are in the lawn industry, but I'm sure in the lawn industry there are people who are of that level as well. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to learn in lawn. I don't know hardly anything about lawn except that it's its own animal. You have specific diseases, funguses. There's cut too high, cut too low can be problems. Soil conditions are an issue often.
Water requirements, yep.
Water requirements, different types and cultivars of grass and where that should go. So I'm sure there's people on that side as well. And I'm sorry that I can't point anyone to anyone in that part of it. But
real quick for some context, if you want to go on YouTube and see videos, I've on my YouTube channel at Keith Kalfas on YouTube. Go toggle over to playlists and scroll down. You'll see videos with Daniel Miraval, certified arborist. And there's an entire playlist of like 12 or 18 videos, and you can get a better kind of feel. How can people, if they're reaching out, find you guys?
Well, I don't know what the best way is.
Oh, the social handles.
Probably that, yeah.
Facebook, Instagram.
LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the last couple of years, we've rebranded the business. I had a company, Brianna had a company, and it kind of was our idea a decade ago. So Brianna and I have known each other for 13-ish years now.
Okay.
And it was about a decade ago that we kind of our individual companies began working together. And the ultimate goal was that one day we would somehow just be one in some regard. A lot of the social media platforms have kind of not been updated. And then COVID happened, and I kind of personally took a break from social media. I thought it was a good time where more people were getting into it. I kind of just disappeared for a while. So if you go on social media, if you go to any of the channels, it's not super relevant, but we're working on cleaning that up and being able to provide guidance for people who are looking for it. So stay tuned for that.
Love it. Awesome. Oh, it's just making people hungrier. They want to know more. Because as I'm listening to this and my brain is going, I see like one day per year where you throw a live event somewhere here between here and Chicago, and people show up from all over the country, and they're hands-on. There's everybody signs a waiver, and then there's people get pruners and loppers, and you do demonstrations
of
air
spading. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of known synonymously with pneumatic soil excavation. Specifically, we use in the Air Spade brand tool. And I teach that, and Brianna teaches the importance of why pneumatic soil excavation is important, especially in regard to plant health care.
Right. It's the most organic plant health care that you could have. Because I didn't tie into this earlier, but my position is usually just to identify secondary problems. So in general, obviously the emerald ash borer is going to find your ash tree no matter what. That's just an insect that finds a tree based on pheromones that the tree is putting off. But Like apple scab usually bothers crab apples that are more in stress, or the two-line chestnut borer comes and attacks oak trees that are in stress. So you're dealing with a lot of secondary issues. Usually if you can just eliminate the stress or at least improve the stress conditions, you can clean up a lot of your secondary problems. So my frontline prescription for properties typically involves doing pneumatic soil excavation, especially if we have a buried flare, whether the tree was installed too deep or maybe has had too much mulch over the years, or it's typically a fixing of compacted soils or buried root flares or things like that. And while a treatment may be needed like in a temporary situation, just to kind of nurse you through the damage that's occurring, sometimes you can eliminate treatment programs altogether just by improving the conditions the tree is growing in.
Site conditions. So we'll help our hardscapers out when they want to put in let's say a patio or, retaining walls within an existing landscape. There are ways to identify, within the critical root zone, what roots are there and can they be pruned correctly so that you can still install and go through with your design build on your hardscaping project so that the trees and the plants that are there are protected. Because you think about it, you're designing a hardscape around, not always, but often around existing trees.
Creating tree coffins.
And you're inadvertently maybe doing that. So we get called out quite often where people will say, my tree doesn't look well, something's wrong with it. Can you tell us what's wrong? And we'll walk in the backyard, or I'll walk in the backyard or whatever, and we'll see like one part of the tree is failing. And then I'll see this patio.
And the first question is, when did that patio go in? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is 3 years ago.
Yep.
Because that is the magic time frame for construction damage to show up in mature trees.
So we do this like dog and pony show. We go on a job site, and she'll say that. I'm like, wait, before you answer, let's say 3-4 years ago, and the client's like, how did you know that? It's like, it's like not, it's science. It's like how long it takes. Yeah. Somewhere between 2 and 5 years is that time frame when roots within that critical root zone, which is from the drip line back to the tree within that area. That's typically what the critical root zone is. When roots are disturbed within that area, it's somewhere between 2 and 5 years.
So the landscapers and hardscapers are listening. They're paying attention. So this brings me to the next thing, and we'll wrap up in a few minutes here. What is the cost of inaction to not learn more about this stuff and pay attention to the sum of, not without scaring people, the liabilities of your business or the worries as just being a landscaper, someone who cuts down trees, or someone who's you know what I'm saying? Why you should learn about this stuff.
Well, there's a litigious factor. So it comes down to, levels of credentialing. So we'll get people from like insurance companies that we'll call, and a tree has failed onto a house, and they'll send pictures, and they'll want to know what happened, why the tree failed. And it's because somebody didn't want to pay out the claim. And sometimes you will do a post-forensic, either through the pictures or if the tree's still laying there on the ground, we'll go and look. And there's been instances where we've seen where a large branch, bigger than 4 or 6 inches in diameter, let's say like a 10, 12-inch branch, was removed right at the trunk of the tree, many, many years ago, has caused lateral decay to go into the tree. And then you see that's, in a storm event, that's where the tree was at its weakest and then failed. So then we're able to tie back to why this event happened. It happened because of something improper that was done. Usually it's pretty hard to go back on someone because that wound was created, 20, 25 years ago. Who knows if the person is still in business or even alive. But, there are certain situations where trees are improperly pruned and there's failure. A lot of times people go up into trees and they take off everything that's in the inside of the tree and everything along the lateral branches as far as they can reach. They take everything off and leave everything right at the end. And then lion's tailing. And then a wind comes along, whips that thing around, and the branch breaks, snaps, and goes through someone's sliding glass door, causes damage. So they'll call someone like us out with our credentials and be like, "Can you come and tell us what happened here?" Write up a statement, and I'm not at a level yet to where I can go and sit and be an expert witness in court, but that's the next level for me to become a registered consulting arborist with the American Society of Consulting Arborists, ASCA. That's kind of the next level.
You said something once about like tree guys coming in, cutting down a monster tree that's 12, 15 feet away from somebody's foundation of their house, and all of a sudden there's water in the basement.
Yeah. So trees and water.
Hey, my friend, if you want to launch your landscaping business successfully this year, then I highly recommend you check out my brand new free landscaping launch 3-video series at keithkalfas.com/landscaping series. Listen, I've been running my landscaping business for over 13 years, and I really believe I know what it takes to start a home service business from literally nothing and take it up to the 6-figure mark. I've been through all types of frustrations and lessons and successes, and I've condensed all of that wisdom down into 3 hyper-specific trainings that you can get access to right now for free. Open up your browser and type in keithkalfas.com/landscaping series, and I'll see you on the inside.
Implications of that. Brianna and I attended a talk with Dr. Asia Doughton
Out of
from
Michigan State University.
You want to talk a little bit about the shape of trees and how that plays a part?
It was the first time I had ever heard the information presented the way that she presented it, but it was kind of one of those common sense things that all of a sudden everything is put into a perfect puzzle and you can't believe that you weren't the one bringing it to the table. But we heard her speak at the Wisconsin Arborist Association conference last year, and she was talking about how the shape of trees, whether they're like more wide and vase shaped or if they're very narrow, affects how rainfall hits the leaves and then funnels down the tree itself. So she was talking about a whole myriad of things, but we talked about how not letting water hit soil underneath trees improves compaction problems. We were talking about how trees funneling water down their trunks actually causes like an excess pooling of water. So sometimes you have the wrong tree in the wrong place because of the way water is being transported along the tree. Like, it was fascinating. I don't know what you took away from it, but I mean,
similar. But
yeah.
But you look at a tree in a backyard, a certain species of tree that loves water, and it's doing really well in the backyard. You have to look at the site conditions and be like, well, that tree's doing very well. It's kind of in a depression. Maybe there are retaining ponds all around in that neighborhood because the entire, if you do the 20,000-foot view, you see that whole area is just a wet area in general due to topography. So you have one tree in the backyard that was taking up a massive amount of water or even deflecting rain so all that water doesn't hit the ground at one time. Then you remove this tree, and all of a sudden there's flooding in the basement. There's been a lot of instances where we've had situations like that where people will say, I had a tree removed and now my landscape is suffering because a neighbor cut down a tree, and that tree was providing shelter for my plants in my yard from excess rain or deflecting rain or taking up groundwater. And now that tree's gone, and all that water now is flowing downhill into my yard, and all my plants are failing.
So you talk about the 20,000-foot view, like, right, trees and water. I'm not going to be able to have all the facts of this perfect, but Fort Wayne, Indiana, when the emerald ash borer originally hit, considered treatments for preservation. So there was one singular year that our company was brought in to do a treatment of certain ash in the parkway that they wanted to preserve. Ultimately, funding didn't work out. They ended up abandoning the project. But what ended up happening is they had a massive amount of ash that all needed to be removed at the exact same time because they all failed at the same time. The amount of stormwater that was coming out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is somehow actually managed by the Detroit waterway system, Detroit had to fine the city of Fort Wayne, Indiana, because of the amount of stormwater that they weren't able to manage. Like, it was beyond anything that had ever been coming through whatever waterway system exists.
And that puts undue stress on our own infrastructure.
So you have one individual resident maybe making a decision to cut down a tree that's managing water locally, and then you have a municipality that was faced with a devastating insect that wiped out, I really don't know, but it had to have been somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 ash trees that then triggered a water event that was a multi-state problem. Like, that's insane.
What?
That's insane.
I watched how the water is mitigated underneath the city of Chicago.
Okay.
And how they have like all this place where the sewer systems and how they deal with big rain, because it's basically a concrete jungle.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were just talking about that, my brain was thinking like, this is like a Sim Earth issue. Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like.
And you think about time, the time that trees, time is a big factor.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about time. I've been trying to brainstorm how I want to share this message for a while, but I'm somebody that my thing is wordplay. Usually my brain is thinking in terms of like words. So acronyms, I play a lot with acronyms. So time as a word and what the arboriculture world is facing. I've been stuck on this phrase, trees in mass exit. Time. Trees in mass exit, because we go to a lot of municipal talks, so I know that a lot of this information comes more from the municipal perspective than it does necessarily the residential perspective. But we have municipalities that are dealing with trees that only make it about 15 years in the parkway, right? 15 years in the parkway. And I don't know where we were or what we were talking about, but I went down this rabbit hole of time, because Daniel has at least 15 to 20 years in the nursery as 15. Like a 15 years as a nurseryman. So I always pick his brains about like the things that I don't fully understand. But while I have been to several nurseries and I understand the production side of things, I always go to Daniel for like my major details that I don't have laid out. But we were driving down a street and a municipality had installed about 20 ash trees in the right-of-way all together, all, well installed per se, but they were all dead. Like they're all dead. And they had just been installed probably within the last year. So you've got these 2.5-inch caliper trees, 20 of them just lining the side of the road. And I said, does anyone ever talk about the time associated with that? And Daniel's like, no, we just look at 20 dead trees and then we have 20 dead trees to rip out of the ground or replace or chase somebody for warranty or, somebody failed a watering program or something simple like that. But I immediately asked, what's the guess? From acorn to the time that it hits the market, how long did we just invest in this oak tree? And everybody from a nursery standpoint might have a different input, but I feel like 5 years is super safe because some species of some species of oak take a lot longer. You might have an 8 or 9 year to market time frame, but if you just use 5 years, and we drove by 20 dead oaks, you're looking at 100 years of dead trees. And I started thinking about things in terms of time like that. We just lost 100 years of investment in what could have only taken 6 months because somebody decided we don't need to water this, right? We don't need an aftercare program. And so I've been really thinking about this, and I don't know why I memorize numbers so well, but I have learned in the last couple of months that a football field is 1.32 acres. So I needed a visual. I needed what does an acre look like? So I wanted to immediately apply it to football. Go Lions.
We almost
I don't ever get to say that, so go Lions. Yeah. We're in Bears country. It's awful. But I wanted to know how many trees safely can you plant in an acre? And long story short, it's about 350 trees to an acre. And I go, Daniel, what size nurseries have you dug in before? And we know nurseries is as tiny as 100 acres, and we know nurseries on the East Coast potentially as large as 3,500 acres. And I'm like, well, if they're at 50% capacity and this, and that. We were talking about one of the nurseries that you used to dig for in a 5-year period of time with the amount of trees that go out. In a 5-year period of time, some of these nurseries are producing 3 million years of investment in trees. 3 million years of trees are being packaged B&B and sent out the door, and yet somehow in a matter of months we've killed 20. Like, I have been on this aftercare program campaign for quite a while, but as soon as I started equating all of everybody talks about the money lost. Everybody talks about like my bottom line was impacted by this. And I'm like, my dramatic answer to your question earlier about what are the implications if somebody doesn't start learning now is literally the planet. Like the planet dying is the implication. So just this concept of time and what it takes to grow a tree, and we're doing a beautiful thing. Planting trees is a beautiful thing, but I really don't think there's been a lot of focus on the fact that you can do it wrong. Or that the tree coming to market is not in a perfect package.
Before we lose you, if you're in the green industry, and let's say you're on the installation side, if you can learn and understand some of the concepts that we're talking about and get some real hands-on training and tutelage about these kinds of things, you can then up the value add to your clients, especially if you're on the installation side with trees. Understanding all these challenges to establishment and their care into the future, you can create quite a bit of value add for clients. So if you're in the green industry and maybe you're feeling stuck, you're still mowing and blowing, and you want to level up to the next step, you don't know how. Without becoming a full-blown arborist, partnering with firms, such as ours. We're not the only ones out there in the world doing what we do, but finding those experts in your local communities and areas, getting yourself as educated as you can, self-taught, can be helpful in leveling up. That's one of the most forgiving things about the green industry, and why some of us do so well in it. I've shared my story before on Keith's social channels. I didn't graduate from high school. Just a Latino kid from the southwest side of Detroit, underserved community, all that stuff. I didn't let that stop me. But what was amazing about the green industry and trees was that it's really self-taught. It's a non-traditional platform of education, but I did very, very well in that non-traditional platform of education. It served me incredibly well. Trees saved my life, and now I save theirs. So if you're passionate about wanting to elevate yourself in life and learn something, the green industry is a great place to be. So if you're on the edge, maybe you just got into the green industry, you ripped out the back seats of your mom's Corolla, and you're running around with your Milwaukee battery-operated blower and your mower, your little push mower, and you're hoping for an X mark one day. Keep at it. This is a great industry to learn how to get there. It takes time, though.
Bro.
It takes time.
I want everybody listening to this podcast to go back, if you're interested, and re-listen, because what Brianna and Daniel are talking about comes from depth of knowledge and deep skill sets. Like, if you just graze over the top and listen, it's like wow. But I'm just like, I want to promote this everywhere. I want everybody to hear this and put it all in the show notes too. I think we should stop there because I don't want to overwhelm people. This is really good. Any final closing statements, Daniel or Brianna?
I mean, from a tree perspective, no. I know a lot of your followers and listeners and those who consume your content are really here because they want to level up. And Keith talks a lot about that. Keith has done such an incredible service to the green industry through his servant leadership in trying to help elevate people through the green industry. I think one of the most important things that you need to do if you're out there, you're listening to these kinds of platforms, is you need to identify like where you're at, what are your core values. That's incredibly important. And what are your key differentiators? What makes you unique from someone else if you're in business? Or what do you want to aspire to be your key differentiators so that you can position yourself in business and in your community to make a difference? I think one of the best parts of the green industry, there's three major components that I talk about. Number one, the green industry offers you an opportunity to create an identity. We all want that identity. It's why some of us, like me, may have joined gangs when we were younger because we wanted to, that resonation somewhere. We wanted that validation. The second part is we all want to be part of a community, our own tribe. And this industry offers you that opportunity. And then number three, there's the altruistic side. Isn't it gratifying when you can do something?
Actually,
that's
look towards
greater.
me real quick. Sorry. Because there's ads playing on. If you're watching this on the video, I got some cool video playing, and ads started playing. I don't want to end this video. Sorry. Keep going. Safe for here.
You want to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself in the end.
Oh, you just ended it right there.
That's pretty much all I got. Yeah. I know it seems like we're tree huggers. We're not. We just, Brianna and I were able to identify our passions a long, long time ago, more than a decade ago. We came into our own perspective point of what our passion was. And then working together for many years, and then, taking things to the next level as a couple, we realized that all along, our passion was driving our purpose in every aspect of our life.
Wow.
And that's how we ended up together.
Love it.
Trying to change the world one tree at a time.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Brianna?
Mine's much more simple, but it has been my blanket go-to, and it's because it took me a very long time to do this myself. Trust your gut. Even today, there was something 2 days ago that I had a gut instinct, and I know better, and I should have followed it, and I didn't follow it, and I'm just back there. Always trust your gut. Usually your intuition is going to lead you down the right path. So that's my go-to.
Trust your gut and intuition. Now, are there any gut feelings or something as hey, don't go that way, or keep going, this is the right?
No, I was going to use something dramatic, and I don't think that, don't drive into the Grand Canyon if all of a sudden that's what you're feeling. That's not a good gut feeling. But no, just, if my specific example, my most recent one would be, we call it our personal board of directors. The company had always had an accountant, had always had a lawyer team, but nobody that I had ever worked with personally, right? Because you inherit a business. You don't inherit, you buy a business, but you are going through the growing pains of learning how to run the business without some of your former people on board. And the accountant didn't know me. I didn't have a good relationship with them. I didn't feel like the accountant had the goals of the company and my goals and our goals in mind. So we have worked very hard to find an accountant and a new attorney to really encompass people that we trust. Mm-hmm. So that's a very specific example, but if your gut is that the next part of your growth is going to be just learning tree biology, like if you genuinely feel like tree care is somehow in your future, then just being able to follow that and explore that, that's the right thing to do.
So yeah, identifying your key differentiators, it's incredibly important, not just in your business, but in your own life. You've really got to think about your 1-year goal, your 3-year picture, your 10-year target, and those things are not they're not static. They need to be dynamic. They need to flow, because what our 1-year goal is right now and what our 3-year picture looks like, today we have a 10-year target, but when next year comes and we reevaluate, it's going to change. It's going to change that 10-year target. So I think it's important that people understand that it's like you watching you. So we've been connected now for 8-9 years. And I've watched you just move through your space and do well and all the value you've added to people. But it's a direct result of the thoughts and actions that you take in the past. So like what you do today is going to dictate your future 2 to 5 years from now. Just like damage to tree roots.
There you go.
2 to 5 years from now. There's a lot of similarities between trees and people.
Yes. So you can have it negative in trees, right? Construction damage causes damage 3 to 5 years down the road. But you want to talk about people and the construction building yourself now will build you to be a better person in 3 to 5 years.
Perfect. All right, let's close right
Love
there.
It.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Untrapped Podcast. If you like the show, if you love the show, go on Apple or Spotify and leave a well-worded review, especially about this episode, so more people can hear this and it can touch more people's lives in a positive way. Thank you so much for being on my show, Daniel Miraval and Brianna. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And hope to have you on soon again. And then also, we got to do another video.
That'd be
awesome.
great. A little hands-on.
Absolutely. Some demonstrations.
Plant a tree.
All right, guys. See you in the next show.
Hey, I hope you liked the show. And if you like the Untrapped podcast and you get value from it, can you please take a minute and go over to Spotify and leave it a well-worded positive 5-star review? It helps boost the rankings on Spotify so the show can get to more people. Therefore, these messages can get out to more people and inspire more people so then they can go out and start their small businesses and crush it and get to the next level. It's a huge deal. All right, I'll see you in the next show.